November, so they'll be easy to put out. And then just very open discussion of status of proposed Grantham building project and next steps for our committee. Let me stop the share. With that, right before you came on, Harry, Marcia said that she has some news to share. So let's hear what that is right out of the gate.
Oh, I guess I'm not at liberty to speak right now. So
okay. But does it have, okay. All right. Well, I wanted to meet with everyone because it's there's a lot's happened since the last time we met. And I wanted to touch base to get an idea of where we are and what's going on. I'm so glad Liz is here and also Linda, so that they can give you probably a much more educated and researched indication of what's happening with Grantham and the project. I attended the CHDC meeting last week and took notes and have a sense of where we are. Peter is also here. And so if I get anything wrong, they can correct me, but why don't I just quickly lay out where it's going. As you might have heard by now, the Grantham project is in peril, and it is so because of the same reason middle school project is, under so much discussion now, and that is that building costs that were estimated for previous iterations or pre-COVID have gone through the roof. So Lee Smith sort of laid out all of the issues. My sense was that group hadn't met in a little while either. And he told us that the state has pulled, there were 34 pending projects similar to the one that that Grantham has proposed to be, supported by the state, and all were pulled with the expectation that they would all have budget shortfalls. And as a result, the decree essentially went out that each community will have to give more money to support what the developers' plans were. That in those cases, the plan as laid out was not going to cut it. So I don't know the exact. I've heard actually from different people, different budget figures, and so I'm sure someone else on the call can tell us what the exact number is. But the good news from that conversation that I heard was that the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust has been in touch with the CHDC and agreed that it would give up to $1 million for on-site wastewater or sewer connection, whatever the situation may be. But to do that, it needs buy-in from the town to make sure the town wants to go forward with the project. And it looks like also the town covers additional costs. That's the part I'm unclear of, what those costs are. And I'm sure someone else on the call could tell us. One of the sort of red flags of this is that, and we've heard this before, but the town without this project will fall below the 10% official. Once the official census numbers are in, the town will fall below the 10% that we hear, that number we hear all the time, and it will lose its safe harbor from future development. And so this is, we're at a critical juncture for the project in general, and that to satisfy the threshold for this 10%, building permits have to be issued, not occupancy permits, but building permits. And as long as those are issued by spring of 2023, that we should be in good shape. Related to our project in particular, what I did was, and this will be the last little bit that I say, and then I'll pass it off to Peter, Linda, and or Liz, is that I went to the meeting to say, look, we have worked, for a long time on these wonderful, beautiful plans. but not only the work that our small, humble committee put forth, but we went on a traveling roadshow to, a dozen other town bodies, all of whom signed on, across all sorts of platforms and interests, everything from the pollinator committee up to the finance committee, and everyone in between, historical committee, disability. I mean, many presentations were made, and it was pretty much unanimous support, which you saw through the, thunderous response to town meeting to, approving our request for 250,000, fully knowing that eventually we'd go back for the full million. And so I said, can we enshrine in any project that goes forward a contingency, or if that's not the right word, some sort of stipulation that these plans be put in place? And the CHDC wasn't going to write it into, it didn't go so far as to say that it would write it into any sort of deeds coming forth, but that they did agree that there was a lot of work and a lot of support, and that they would ask that that our plans be part and parcel with any project, whether it's Grantham or another developer. And what they suggested is that we go ahead with the conservation restriction for the 200 foot, which comprises most of our project. There's the meadow off on the left looking at it, but that we go ahead with that and sort of cement that notion and write the conservation restriction so that the plans that we wanted to put forth are allowed inside that conservation restriction. I wrote to Delia after that meeting asking for sort of feedback on that so that I could report back to you about what she said and how we could move that forward, which I'm very happy to take the lead on, but I did not hear back from Delia. I don't know if she's not around this week or what, but I did not hear back from Delia. So that's the status of what I have to tell you. But let's hear from someone else on the call with more clarity on the Grantham situation, about what we might be facing, what Grantham might be facing, and what the status of the project is. I don't know who to go to, whether Peter. Thank you, Peter. Go ahead.
So just to correct you, I had suggested that we proceed with the deed restriction, but after further conversations with CHDC, we decided that we didn't want to put any restrictions on the property until we sort of had more information. So I think that's sort of where we left it. Our intention is to support and honor the work that this committee has done, but we didn't want to bind the hands of the town moving forward with the project, because it's not looking too good with Grantham at the moment.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what's going on, whether it's you or someone else, like really, so we have a pretty firm understanding of what's happening with Grantham?
I don't really know the status. Liz, can we talk about what?
So I think that it's really evolving, like on an hourly basis, really, like right now. And I think that the project team is really just having some discussions. So, okay, so you just got the word that So Grantham has withdrawn, so that's just breaking news. I just got the A-OK to let you know that. So this is really like over the last this afternoon. Okay. What does that actually mean? I don't know, like unwinding all that. So, that it was clear. I don't know if, I just blurted that out, right? But, Monday that the select board met, and it was really very clear the select board was not supporting the project, and it was actually going in a different direction than support, really like, more proactive opposition, in some ways. So Walter said that he, all of his other projects have been in partnership with the towns that he's been in, and it was clear that this was not a project that was working for the town. So he was like, okay with that. Like, okay, we're just going to part ways, and you know, that's what it is. Just part ways. You know, no hard feelings and all that. So what does that actually mean? And so there's a lot of commitments that have to be unwound, and this, and you know, the CHDC has their Assabet River Bluff project. So I think it's going to take them some time to you know, kind of figure out where things are. And I you know, they'll meet and discuss sort of next steps, but I think that they'll, I can't really speak for them, but the indications I have is that they'll focus on Assabet River Bluff and just let this like sit for a while and just see what's what.
Okay. Okay. And so what are thoughts in the room about the forward progress of our part of this? Any thought? I mean, Marcia, I see you nodding your head, or shaking your head, but is there any way that we could try to protect the work that we did in terms of what the future plans for the site are?
You have memorialized it in the plans that you have prepared. The CHDC has been a partner to that planning process through their funding of the designer. So I think that they have those plans. And, you know, you'll just have to continue to stay open to the relationship with Concord Housing Development Corporation and continue to request that they honor those plans or work with them whenever they move forward with future redevelopment of the property. I don't think there's anything more that you can do, because you don't own the land and you don't control the land. Right.
Is there any merit in trying to move forward with the conservation restriction, which would be, I think, required for the 200-foot zone anyway, or no?
Well, I don't think it depends. It depends on what is proposed and what we see in the future. You know, I don't think that you're going to, I have no idea what might come forward, and they may need to utilize some portion of that 200-foot area. It has been a dump in the past. It has been abused in the past. Their wastewater treatment field was in the 200-foot setback area. So I think that there might be arguments made that it is not a pristine location, and therefore they have the right to develop some portion of that 200-foot area. So, and depending on what kind of housing is proposed, we have no idea what may or may not fly.
Right, what might come forward. Well, does anybody else in the room, Krista or Harry or Steve, or does anybody else have thoughts or anything to add?
I mean, I think, yeah, Marcia's absolutely right. It's, and you know, if I were the landowner, I wouldn't encumber the property in any way until I knew what else was going to happen. But I am hopeful that, you know, maybe CHDC can work with a friendly 40B developer down the road, and we can, I mean, because, you know, we need the housing too. That's, I mean, this is like a double whammy, because now the threat of 40B is hanging over us again. But I just want to say thank you to everybody for all the hard work that went into this, and you know, especially Carlene and Liz, and I hope that it won't be for nothing.
No, it won't be for nothing. There was a big education campaign. We learned a lot about the area. And I think no matter what, some of those things that we learned and that we pulled out of it in terms of how historic the site is and all of that, I can't imagine that people will forsake that on every level moving forward. That would be shocking if through all of those revelations, nothing came from it.
If I may, we did a lot of history about the prison, and I don't know if Harry would be interested in helping put together, I mean, it wouldn't go on this site, but it might go along the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, an additional educational, informational, interpretive panel. And that is a relatively low cost thing, but it would allow for celebrating the history of the property. So that's something that you might want to think about.
I think that's a great idea of something, you know, just to sort of salvage some of the ideas and the work that we put forth. Linda, can you speak at all, just to sort of give us an idea of what the direction the select board hopes to see the property go into, and if any of the ideas sort of rose to the bubble to the top in terms of what we might see go there?
The conversation really didn't get that far.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do love the idea that, you know, capturing some of what this committee has done, you know, vis-a-vis the historical research on the prison, and, you know, doing a project that would benefit the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. Be ashamed to lose all that.
So what is the, oh, sorry, Steve, go ahead. Sometimes I don't see those little hands. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, hi. So yeah, my opinion is that long term, I mean, obviously the site will be developed with some sort of affordable housing, but my hope is that the piece along the river, the closest piece of the river, is preserved as walking trails, similar to what we have at Concord Park, where the right by the train station there, you have the development, but then you have trails and back along the river, which are really quite nice, and they don't take up much space, and you get to enjoy the little bit of nature that's there. But I just think that there's, you know, opportunity there for some sort of park or trails. Maybe not what we originally planned, but something. So that's all.
You mean once it all in the down?
Once, yeah, and I can understand not restricting the land, because until we know what's going in, that makes sense to me. But I think not to lose sight of the benefits for the West Concord public to enjoy the river and enjoy trails by the river. I think it's gorgeous land, and that piece could be, you know, saved for walking trails, you know, next to whatever is developed.
Right.
So that's all.
So do we just disband? I mean, what is the next step for this group? Do we disband? Do we put ourselves on hold? I'm not sure what happens in this, like logistically, what happens in this situation.
It's going to take years to come back to this point again.
Yeah.
And you know how committees are and people's time and efforts,
Yeah.
and, you know, so, you know, I think that should the group get reconstituted at a later date, you would be the natural people to come. I don't know. Marcia has something to say.
No, I want to suggest that a report is warranted to wrap up the work of the committee. You'll have all of your minutes of the meetings, documenting what has been done and discussed, I think is really important. And that could then be to say, knowing that this is going to be a work in progress for the next 5 to 10 years. Here's our report, and give it to the select board and task them with reconstituting the group when and this is redeveloped in the future. So I see Harry has his hand up.
Go ahead, Harry. Sorry, I'm writing, so I'm not looking up. Go ahead, Harry.
Yeah. I mean, I was just gonna say that how it's sort of positioned, that this work is done can be positioned, and I don't know all the details of this, really how like a development would come together, what kind of incentives they have, but marketing the property is that the historical aspect with the Civil War, you know, congregation, Malcolm X, coupled with conservation aspect to it, improves the valuation of the property. And so that it can be seen not as something that's like in opposition to developing the property, but it's really adds value to the property, and it's an asset for whoever develops it to help market the property.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Marcia, did you have anything else to add, or that was your feedback in terms of how, so a report?
That's my feedback. That's it. I unless there's something, I mean, Linda, if there's something else that would be beneficial to the select board at this point.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the reaction is of the community to this. And so there, you know, it's hard to know what might be helpful.
Okay.
It's very new. It's very new news. Like it's like an hour old. So it's hard to know exactly, Carlene, like what.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I know. And then if I were to write that report, can I convince folks to sort of hang on to at least review the draft of the report and wordsmith it a bit before it goes, you know, so is that something, I suppose it could even just be done on email where it's not everyone's communicating on email, but you're just sending edits back to me. Marcia, I think you're looking at like a 3 to 5 page report.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And yes, that, and then, you know, hand that off and say.
And effectively disband after that.
Well, it's the select, isn't it the select board that appointed you?
Yes.
So they would be the one who would disband you.
Yes.
I mean, you have the process that you went through, like a little thing, you know, like what public forums were held, the dates that they were held and what happened there. And then you have the, you know, the meetings, and then you have the plans that stand for themselves and the cost estimates. And so the overall perspective, and those are huge. And then there is the matter of the CPC funds that were appropriated and probably releasing those or something. I don't know whether you release or just hold them for, you know, for the next thing. I'm not really sure, but that would be a detail to also attend to.
Yeah. And was it the town or CHDC that applied for that application? I think it was the town.
Mm-hmm.
Through the Junction Village Open Space Task Force. So your recommendation on what to do with the CPC funds, and then the CPC fund, the Community Preservation Committee would have to accept that. So it might be a conversation with them.
Yeah.
Because they don't like to hold money for an unknown period of time.
I wouldn't recommend that they do hold money. I mean, I think, as to use Liz's word, we would just recommend that they release it back into the pot. Is that right?
Yeah. Because I mean, the cost estimates and that, I mean, you know, like are all going to be different when you pick it up again.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, and also to let Bill Murray know, you know, as I say, sort of, you know, unwinding the project, that like, this is what's happening.
Okay.
That can be like a tier 2 thing for sure, but I'm just trying to think of all the things, you know.
And just finally, and Peter, I'll pose this to you, and forgive my ignorance. I'm just you know, this is not my area, but it would never, what do you think, it would never fly or not make sense to pursue this separate of whatever, to pursue the, like, sort of with what Steve said, but pursue the idea of making a path on the right side of that property completely separate from the whatever will be eventually built there?
I think prudence dictates that it wait, Carlene. You know, the riverfront sort of swings in toward the access to the site, and maybe that 200-foot river setback might be infringed a little bit right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the access to the paths it's not really a good access now for people, right? Like you'd have to do some work to actually, right? Some site work.
Yeah.
I think that's what Peter's saying. And I think that from the CHDC, they'll have to think, you know, insurance and liability and opening paths and, you know, like that's not, you know, it's just kind of, it's not really set up for that now. And that's not their own.
You know, our mandate is create affordable housing. And
right.
Much as we want to support the open space and the trails and all the great plans we've created, I think all we can really do is commit to saying, we will bring this to the attention of whoever we work with to redevelop the site and attempt to get it integrated into their plans.
Okay. Okay.
But, you know, I would guess that there's no reason not to make that as a recommendation for consideration down the road once new plans are clearer, just so it's captured.
Mm-hmm. Meaning, Linda, make like what we started with, saying like to make that as part of the recommendation that this become part and parcel with whatever new plans are put forth.
Yeah.
Maybe not the exact plans,
it's the committee's hope that,
yeah.
Yeah, in the report, for sure. I'm sure
Yeah, that's what I
you
meant.
would do that. Yeah.
That's what I'm referring to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. Steve, is your hand up or is that an old hand up?
No, it's a new hand.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just to follow up on that on the long term, it's, you know, when we have like the conservation projects in the town where we have affordable housing, you know, we'll earmark a piece for affordable housing and partition it off, like say with Giroux or even Assabet Bluffs, and then so this is the opposite, where we have affordable housing and we'd like to add some conservation to it. So it might be good just to say, hey, let's look at what is going to be the conservation piece, be proactive about it, and maybe just partition that off now, and then or in the near future, and not just wait indefinitely for 5 or 10 years. So that's just my thought. Like when it works the other way, when we have conservation land, well, we don't have the affordable housing right away. We don't hold the whole conservation project just until we have affordable housing. So we might, I'm just making a pitch that like that piece is worth doing something with. And I think long-term, we know we're not going to have housing right up to the river. So it may not be 200 feet, I don't know, maybe 125 feet, but it might be, I'm just making a pitch that we not wait 5 or 10 years.
Krista?
Or indefinitely. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for CHDC, but there might be like a fiduciary issue there.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
CHDC can't really part with land until there's a plan in place.
Okay. All right. All right. Well,
I think that when Carlene, when you came to the CHDC, I think that they were really appreciative of all the efforts and certainly recognized the value in capturing the work going forward. So I think it's really just meshing that into some of the points that have been brought up.
Yes, I agree. All right. Well, I've been scribbling furiously. And so what my proposal is that I'll write up, you know, in the coming week or week and a half, 3 to 5 page report that captures what we've said, but also just captures the sort of arc of what we did over this year and a half or 2 years, whenever we started. I'd have to look back, and send that all to you for comment and edits, and then sort of go on a different type of traveling roadshow, and present our final report to the select board, and also ask for an audience with the CPC to just sort of close the loop on these things, and assume that will be the sort of, you know, completion of our work, at least for the time being. Does that sound okay with everybody? Does that sound like the right plan? And then as part of some of our recommendations, Marcia, Harry, anyone who is interested in sort of, you know, capitalizing on now what we know about the history of the site, maybe look into doing something. I'd hate to do something small when we could do something much more appropriate to honor the site in the future, you know, but maybe one doesn't have to conflict with the other. Harry, I see you took yourself off mute. Did you want to say something?
No, I think it's just let this just happen. I think it's good just to let's see where this goes, what kind of response there is. There are some other people that looking to do a public mural on the prison wall. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Liz.
Yeah.
Margot Kimball, and maybe the Bruce Freeman would, you know, if they're interested in putting up more, you know, plaques, if they have the budget for that kind of thing, that would be cool.
So Harry, I was just going to mention, so that through CPO, through that other hat, right, is they're starting to bring together people to talk about a panel, but over by the cemetery area, to specifically talk about the cemetery. And maybe you're interested in joining up with that group to sort of see if some of your work there with Sam and various town folks and the Bruce Freeman folks and Marcia, and to talk about the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail and the prison cemetery but it
Yeah.
could be, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely.
Okay, all right.
Well, I won't keep anybody any longer. I'm so grateful for all of your help and attention and guidance and just sort of inspirational thoughts and commitment to this effort over the last year and a half or so. It was truly my honor to serve with all of you. And you know, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to resurrect this at some point. There was a lot of support for it. And that's got to count for something. And so even if we have to push the pause button for a while, I do think that it will sort of circle back. And sometimes the best things are the ones you have to wait for. So so if no one has any further thoughts, then I'll have us sign off and conclude the meeting. Does that sound good?
Thanks for your leadership.
Yes,
Okay.
Carlene.
Thank
Yes,
you, Carlene.
thank you.
I've really
Yeah.
liked getting to know you and working with you in this project.
Me
Yeah.
too. Me too. Okay, everyone. Well, at 5:33, fastest meeting yet. I'll officially adjourn us, and thank you so much. Take care, and I'm sure I'll see you all around. And please look to your inboxes for a draft report in the next week or so, week and a half. Okay.
Thanks, Carly.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Carlene. Thanks, everyone.